My never I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there. I see them yopo.
Joe abusuafo enkomo a oye ba beti no me pacho o adwenkyere bi a na wo de to comment section no ase owura ye frɛ no eye Kwasi Pratt Junior akasa na ne nkasa yemu no in fact wa biebie secret bebre so efa the economy of Ghana any say ntira enne ya be wie ba bia wie in fact omampanyin abedi akiri Bawumia enya ne chefa wo mu omampanyin kofo enya ne chefa wo mu ene enyoma papa no ekekaye no mepese yebeko na yakutie enkomo ni because very deep, to be honest. Sometimes me bisam am de bia me bisam no say ntinkrofo yi se mpanyifo bi say kasa Ghana fo mpanyifo omutie anaso omuntie yenko na yenko tie enkomo no emra ansa na be come so subscribe to PENDREAM TV no like video no e de amame na wa share ato other places wa adwenche bi ampacho fato comment section ase na following e wo ye social media platforms nyina so na yentumi enhu dia eko yanko hwe enkomo na enhuti enkomo no emra sisia
much for this message. Okay, so Mr. Pratt.
Well, I think the first important statement to make is that the depreciation of the cedi has many dimensions, and it's not a very simple issue to discuss. Indeed, it can, be discussed for all the 3 hours that this program has. The other panelists have discussed many aspects, of the problem. And I intend to focus attention on just 1 or 2 aspects of the problem, which may not even be economic, but nonetheless are very significant. Now, the most important thing for me is that it has to do with our politics. How we vote and how we examine promises which are made by politicians. Because I recall that not too long ago, just about 7 years ago, a little over 7 years ago, we were in an election season as we are today. And one of the contenders, the New Patriotic Party, and its leaders made a huge promise to Ghana. Now, at the time, the dollar was being exchanged, $1 was exchanging at the rate of less than 4 cedis. It was 3 point something, less than 4 cedis. Now, the New Patriotic Party and its leaders looked us in the face and said that was catastrophic. And that if we voted for them, they would stabilize the city. Now, this is very important for me. This is a major promise that they made to us. Okay. Now, since then, we voted after 4 years, and we are just about to vote again. Now, the immediate question is, were they able to fulfill this promise? And the answer is no. Because from less than 4 cedis to $1, we've now reached a situation of 15 cedis to $1. Now, this is crazy. You understand? They've not stabilized the cedi. The cedi has gone haywire. 15 cedis to $1. That is where we are now. Now, so we can make the point about them not fulfilling their electoral promise. And we can punish them, or indeed we should punish them for not fulfilling that promise. But I think it's important that we don't leave it just at that. this should become the reminder that promises are glibly made in the election frenzy. And therefore, we should be listening to the politicians very, very closely and examining the promises that they make. Okay? And now, they are making fantastic promises again. I mean, I'm hearing some of the promises, and I'm wondering what these politicians take us for. And I mean it, these politicians. What do they take us for? The other day, I heard a gentleman who is also so anxious to become president and so on. And one of the promises he has made is simply that he will go to Jamestown. You see Jamestown, you see that it's a seashore. And he would make sure that he would divert the sea all the way from Jamestown to Bantama in Kumasi. What is the cost of such a project? What is the cost of such a project? And in any case, do we want the sea in Bantama? And if we manage to take the sea to Bantama, what advantage does it give us? And so on. Is it even technically feasible to take the sea to Bantama? You understand? So that promise needs to be examined in much the same way that the promise which was made by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia to stabilize the city needs to be made. You understand? Now, there were some other promises which had been made in the past. I'm not going to go there. I mean, Okudonko was excellent at making fantastic promises. I don't think that she's any longer in the race, and there's no point visiting some of the promises that she made and so on. But this is where we are. Now, the continued devaluation of the city. What is it that leads the city to be devalued regularly and constantly and so on? What is it? This morning, my good friend and brother from Odododio did his analysis. And he made the point that the dollar is actually, in real terms, a worthless piece of paper. And that is true. The dollar is not backed by anything. When the United States government needs money to do anything, just prints. And as a matter of fact, the cost of printing the cedi is far higher than the cost of printing the dollar. Check. Because the cedi has a lot of colors. The dollar at most has 3 colors. So in terms of cost of printing, the cedi is more expensive to print than the dollar. And yet the dollar, which is backed by nothing, just printed piece of paper, appears to have or does have a lot of value which the cedi doesn't have. Why? You see, when we are dealing with currencies derive their value from the level of confidence people have in the economy of the issuing country. That's all. The dollar has become the currency of choice for international trade, only as a matter of confidence. It is not that, and he said that brilliantly, it's not that they are producing a lot of gold. In fact, the US economy is in near recession. Okay? But why? Because everybody wants the dollar for international trade. And because everybody wants the dollar for international trade because of some assumed or real confidence in the economy of the United States of America, its value keeps shooting up. Indeed, even against the euro, the dollar hasn't done badly at all. You understand? So it simply means that there's no confidence in the Ghanaian economy. I mean, recently when the dollar hit 14.2 cedis, you know, there was a shortage of dollars on the market. Why was there a shortage of dollars on the market? Because people believe that if you keep your money in cedis, you would lose. And that it is more sensible to keep your money in dollars. So there was a rush for dollars. Now that rush for dollars, people who have money, who are rushing to keep their money in dollars, itself devalues the cedi and increases the value of the dollar. So we are dealing at a certain level with confidence, just confidence. That intangible thing called confidence is what we are dealing with. Okay. So therefore, there's another question. How come that the confidence in the Ghanaian economy is so very low? The confidence in the Ghanaian economy is so very low for a number of reasons. And one of the major reasons is that we have become import dependent. Look, the problems that we suffer in the economy, the value of the currency and so on, is traceable to the 1966 coup, February 24th, 1966 coup, when a group of nitwits and bandits and political ignoramuses decided to truncate the part of national development, the program for national development, which the Nkrumah government had put in place. The Nkrumah government had crafted a 7-year development program aimed at the building of a self-reliant national economy. An economy which does not suffer, a cough when the economies of the metropolitan countries develop a cold. That was the kind of economy that the Nkrumah government wanted to build. What did they do? They came and dismantled that economic arrangement and recklessly embarked on the path of neoliberalism. And we are still on that path. The only government, and I mean it, the only government since February 24, 1966, which made an attempt to move away from what sometimes is described as the Goggisberg economy, the neoliberal order and so on, is the Achampong government. Finish, no other government. Okay? Now, some of the stories, if you tell them today, they will sound like Anansi stories. But they are important stories to repeat and repeat and repeat so that they serve as some kind of a warning for all of us. The Nkrumah government had established a tannery, that's the factory for making leather, at Avaime, in Samuel Okujato Abrakel's constituency. They had established a tannery. Now listen very carefully. They had also established a meat factory in Bolgatanga. I hope you are beginning to see the connection between tannery and meat factory. And then they had also established a shoe factory in Kumasi, and the connection must be very clear now. So, initially, we were to bring in cows, okay? They skin the cows for the tannery at Avaime, to turn the skin into leather for the production of shoes in the Kumasi shoe factory, and to can the meat in Bolgatanga the Corner Bridge project, the cannery in Bolgatanga. So you see the connection. Now what happened? When the 1966 coup occurred, these brigands, these fools, these ignorant people killed the cattle and used the meat for pepper soup. Yeah, they use the meat for pepper soup. Now, if you do this to your economy, what do you expect will happen? You expect your city to rise? Obviously not. You see, now, there's a lot of talk about land grabbing. You go to Laboni, see Laboni, go to Laboni. You see the street in front of the South African embassy. Go and see what is happening there. All the government lands have been taken over by private interests. And go and check which private interest is doing that. But they are building monstrous structures on these government bungalows and so on, just in front of the, and this is very important, okay? Now, does it make sense? How does that promote our economy and so on? You see, the colonialists, those who colonized us, those who enslaved us, they built the Ridge Hospital, which is now the Greater Accra Regional Hospital. Think about it. It used to be an European-only hospital. I mean, since Nkrumah has now become a hospital for everybody and so on. But before, when I was growing up, it was referred to as a European hospital. People who look like you did not go to that hospital for treatment. Okay? Now, in their wisdom, they decided to build bungalows around the hospital. Bungalows, there are plenty of bungalows around the hospital. Now, those bungalows, the doctors lived there. So if there was an emergency, the doctor just walks to the theater, walks to the OPD, walks to the hospital to deal with the emergency. You may not see the economic sense there, but there's a lot of economic sense there. Cost of running the hospital is reduced. Health as a factor for economic development is tackled, and so many aspects. Okay. Today, what has happened? Very sensible politicians have decided that the doctors should not live there, and that the bungalows around Ridge Hospital should be privatized. And they have privatized those bungalows. To the extent that I know a doctor working at Ridge Hospital who lives at Kaswa. Now just imagine that there's a national emergency. How does this doctor come from Kaswa to the hospital to perform his or her duties? If it rains, that one, forget it. If it doesn't rain, traffic alone will take care of that business and so on. So it doesn't make sense. The things we've done in the past do not make sense. The things we're doing now do not make sense at all. It does not promote any confidence in the economy and so on. Now, my brother, 7 years ago, our president boldly walked to the microphones. Boldly, just out, walked to the microphones and said he had seen God. He had a conversation with God. And in the conversation with God, he had promised God that he will build a house for God. God needs accommodation. My brother, God is homeless. That he will build a house for God. This is God who supposedly created heaven and earth. Created the galaxy. The galaxy, you know how big the galaxy is? But he's homeless. God is a homeless person and needs a house. A lot of people spoke a lot of sense. Nobody listened. So we started building a house for God. You understand? Now, we took 200 million. 200 million. Is it dollars?
Cities, yeah. No.
Whatever it is, something worth 200 million.
Yes.
And we dug the biggest and most expensive hole in the world. Does that not affect your CD dollar rate? It doesn't affect your CD dollar rate? It does, in many ways. But the worst part of it is that those responsible for digging this hole now turn around, they look around the country and they say, look, some people are very, very incompetent. They are the only competent people in the world. Competence. Is this competence? And the people they are accusing of incompetence, they say, look, they built the Greater Accra Regional Hospital at an inflated cost. They are incompetent, they are thieves. The hospital is there, it's taking patients. Let us agree that the hospital was built at an inflated cost. Is it not there? Is it not functioning? Is it not dealing with complicated surgeries and so on? So if that is incompetence, building the Greater Accra Regional Hospital is incompetence, is a mark of incompetence, what then is the whole near Parliament House? What does it signify? And so on. Shocking. I'm told that the exact amount of money which was spent on digging that hole was spent on building the Sagrami housing project. That's what I've been told. So look at Sagrami. Look at the hole. Who is incompetent? Who is incompetent? I mean, amazing. Amazing. You understand? Now, how do you generate confidence in the economy? You generate confidence in the economy by first and foremost making true statements about the economy. True statements. When the leadership of a country make false statements about the state of the economy and they are found out over and over and over again, it leads to the loss of confidence in the economy. Okay. Now look at the kinds of statements we've been making about the state of the economy and how to move forward and so on. I mean, one politician, he looked us in the face and courageously told us that taking loans is an abomination. And why are we taking loans? You don't have to take loans to develop. All you have to do is to toll your roads. And if you toll your roads and you collect the road tolls properly, you would never have to borrow. Obviously, this politician was coming from Cuckoo's land. There is no country anywhere in the world which has developed simply because it collected road tolls. If you collect it efficiently, it may finance the construction of roads. That's all. And, Master, the instruments for borrowing, the mechanism for borrowing and so on, is available to all of us, and you borrow under some circumstances. Now, this chap, I don't want to mention his name because everybody knows him already. In fact, everybody knows even his nickname. His nickname is most exciting. His nickname is Timothy. You know? Nasana, listen to me. He's in a government that has borrowed more than any other government in our history. Check the records. More than any other government in the 67-year history of Ghana after independence. So we should be listening to them very carefully today. We should be weighing the promises they make. And we should be careful not to vote for people who talk glibly. Because if you vote for glib talkers, in the final analysis, the price of Kinky moves from 50 pesos to 5 cedis in 6 years. If you vote for people who talk glibly, in the final analysis, within a 7-year period, the value of your cedi decreases from 3 point something to $1 to 15 cedis to $1. If you listen to people who talk glibly, in the final analysis, what you have is what we have today in Ghana. You understand? Now, what is it that we ought to do in order to lift the city up? There are many things we have to do. Not one of them on its own is a solution. You have to do a combination of many things. Okay. One most important thing that we have to do is to stop our dependence on imports. Because if your economy is dependent on imports, you suffer from imported inflation. When there's any economic difficulty in countries from which you import, it does affect you. You understand? It does affect your economy. So we need to think about how we can avoid import dependence. And there are many ways in which we can do that. One of the things I want to talk about, I used to talk about it, and some people thought that it was a crazy idea, but it's important. How many of us eat cocoa in Ghana? How many of us eat cocoa and cocoa products in Ghana? Very few. And yet we've put a lot of our effort into cocoa production, a commodity which we don't consume. Is it sensible to export cocoa and import rice? Would it not be more sensible to produce rice instead of cocoa? And mind you, all the 16 regions of Ghana have favorable conditions for the cultivation of rice. And indeed, the quality of rice which is produced in Ghana is much higher than the imported white rice that we bring into the economy. Maybe we should begin to think about what we produce, begin to evaluate the usefulness of what we produce to ourselves. That may be one of the steps that we need to take in order to address this economic quagmire that we find ourselves in. But you see, but there's something also very interesting. In the period of 7 years that the new patriotic party has been in power, the level of cocoa production has been reduced by 50%. Check the figures. 50% reduction in the level of cocoa production. Today, cocoa is selling at the highest price
in history
since Kwasi brought cocoa to the Okrapim Mountains. Today, if you go to the New York Stock Exchange, it's phenomenal. But you see, Ghana is not benefiting from this huge monumental increase in the price of cocoa. First of all, because we are underproducing, and secondly, because we do forward sales. The cocoa we are producing this year was sold maybe last year or 3 years ago. So we are doing forward sales. So we are not benefiting from the rise in the price of cocoa on the world market. We are not benefiting at all. Massa, even the Rawlings administration, and I'm saying this advisedly, even the Rawlings administration, because no government in Ghana has embarked on the path of neoliberalism to the extent that the Rawlings regime did in 1982-1983. You can check the record. Under the marching orders of the IMF and the World Bank, we did crazy things in this country in 1982-83. The national currency was massively devalued. Retrenchment of labor resulted in 300,000 workers losing their job. Check the figures from the Trade Union Congress of Ghana. We embarked on a massive privatization of state enterprises to the extent that we actually set up a structure to sell state enterprises headed by the late Mr. Bawumia and so on. You understand? But even under the Rawlings government, efforts were made in order to build factories that turn cocoa beans into usable products and exportable products. And so even under Rawlings, what is happening under this government? This government, it prides itself that it has the men. And when they talk about having the men and so on, you know what they mean? You know. Now there are people with some academic credentials, doubtful academic credentials. As they are talking about people who went to Yale, who went to Oxford,
Cambridge.
Thank you, sir. Who went to Cambridge and so on. That's what they're talking about. But if you look at the records, when I was growing up, the managing directors of the state enterprises who did so well, Akasa, Noma, and so on, many of them had never stepped in a university before. Many of them were middle school leavers. And they ran this country. They expanded access to education. They increased the industrial capacity. And so on. There were even ministers who had never been to secondary school before. Ministers, never been to secondary school before. Check their records against the Cambridge people and the Oxford people and so on. Check the records. You understand? So I think, flowing from this, that one of the things we ought to do is to assign responsibility to people who have the capacity, who have the knowledge, people who understand the Ghanaian society, and so on. Those are the people we have to assign responsibilities to. Not those who come in front of us with a chain of useless degrees and so on. And I'm going to say something, my brother. I'm going to say something. I've been wanting to say this for a very long time. But I've always been afraid. Because if you say it, they will come to you and say, bring the proof, and so on. But you all know that what I'm going to say is true. Except that you don't have the courage to say it publicly. Right now, as we sit here, you know, there's a boom in university degrees. Everybody is going for masters. Some have triple masters and so on. How do they obtain those masters? Do they study to obtain them? So now speak the truth. Do they study to obtain them? Master, do they study to obtain them? Because I know how some of them obtain those masters. Today, there's a racket. You can actually employ people to do your master's program for you if you have money. Yes. You can have triple masters anytime. You just employ 3 teams. They will write your thesis for you, they will do everything for you, and then you'll be awarded a master's degree. So those people who are carrying master's degrees on their heads, looking for jobs and so on, check their capability. They may not have done the masters by themselves. If I lie, tell me that I lie. I will apologize. 100% right.
But when you go,
when you
go to Lagos, there are adverse
suggested that if you want to write thesis,
yes, you can call this number.
Yes. It's boldly written. They are writing thesis.
And it goes just beyond the thesis. Yes. They do more.
Yeah, they do all
and everything.
Yeah.
So if somebody comes and is looking for a job and all they bring is a master's degree, be careful. Because they may not have written any exam by themselves. They paid somebody to write it for them. You understand? That is the worth of some of the degrees that people are parading around today. And any wonder these people come with triple masters, FOPL, is there anything like FOPL? Quadruple masters. And so on. And then we give them jobs and then total failure. Basa, nyama, like that. So, my brother, let's begin to build this country on the basis of proving competence rather than on the basis of the certificates people throw into our faces. And I'll tell you another story. I was in the UK. This was 1991. I was in the UK. And I went into one building, boldly labeled University of something something, near the London Bridge. One building, university. A friend of mine was there, and I went to see him, you know. And I was offered a PhD. Yeah. I was offered a PhD. And what do you do to earn a PhD? You pay a certain amount of money, and then you go through a few processes and so on. And they will give you a PhD. Plus the PhD ring. Have you seen the PhD ring before?
I've not seen that one before.
No! Now,
PhD ring, yeah.
People wear PhD rings.
Hey.
Yes. It's so easily obtainable in the US and in the UK and so on. They will give you a full certificate. I've forgotten how much it was. Something very small, something less than 200 pounds or so. You will get your PhD. And they will give you the ring on top. And the ring is not small, it's beautiful, Papa. You haven't seen, now that I've told you, when you see people walking around, look at their fingers. Some of them are actually wearing PhD rings. Yeah, PhD rings, they are big and beautiful. So you go and give the economy to PhD ring wearers, and when you give the economy to PhD ring wearers, what can you expect? And then my final statement, that's very simple. You see, God, whichever God you believe in, because there are different concepts of God, but whichever God you believe in and worship, that God is not an economist. Whichever God you believe in, you understand? Master, if prayers could change things in Ghana or anywhere in the world, we will not be having doomsday today. Because the cassock wearing priests who traveled to Akosombo to go and pray over the dam, they were not small priests though. I mean, in terms of size, they were not small. Some of them, their pot bellies, you would think that they were pregnant. Okay? Big priests. In terms of reputation, they were big and so on. They prayed and prayed and prayed over the Akosombo dam, and we still had doomsday. And we are still having doomsday. What lesson should that teach us? That solving doomsday is not a matter of prayer. Before this limited voter registration exercise started, did you see that woman on the Electoral Commission? So now if you tell me that you didn't see her, I'll be very angry with you. That woman on the Electoral Commission who put the machines down, I think on the table, what? And prayed over the machines. The voter machines were not working, the BIDs and so on, they were not working. This electoral commissioner, instead of looking for mechanics and paying the mechanics to repair the machines, decided to anoint the machines, and she prayed over them. Hey, she prayed. What happened? So this nonsense of praying our problems away, we should stop it immediately, because we know that it doesn't work. It didn't stop DUSO. It didn't stop the huge errors in the voter registration exercise. And I don't see how it's going to make the city rise. Because already we have seen an archbishop. Why are you laughing? Is it not what I'm saying? Is it not true? Yeah. A full archbishop in white cassock with red trimmings and some hat on top, commanding the city to rise.
Rise city.
He's cracking us up.
You can be a good preacher. The voice.
The voice.
Rise city. Rise.
No, I'm only imitating this. And that day, the city fell. In the name of God, I command the city to rise. Why do you mock God? Those things, they don't matter when it comes to the value of the city. When it comes to the value of the city, you can't command the city to rise. You have to do sensible and practical things for the city to rise. Not commanding the city to rise. My brother, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, the mobile had on my hand because they ura Kwasi Pratt and comedy, no. Yeah, the basic and Kwasi Pratt or you be a okasa sometimes Oberfan say a joke but no cancer pa uti in some more can ya we do in some be below honomwa. I think that the best solution for this country. But as to say you penny for no ebefa no ma diso no ma hwaye no and no any problem. And uti in some be our can. There say young politicians no, especially the MPP near Omanpenyi Akufo-Addo any Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia mo ebeye ye no eno na awiwi ye ne sei pa we have the men any ene eno na man ne che say ye hu ba bi a botto no kura da ne de kura de excuse me e dey ashim anti what I'll be pleading and say ye mpanyifo a moda oman ano especially oman panyini John Dramani Mahama nyame ya adoma enche by 7th January 2025 there now I be president of the Republic of Ghana no nsem say and I think say going forward no wo betumi ahwe na wo de aye adwuma because Ghana ba bi aye dru no yakopem yehia change and a change na yehia no enye change ketwa mo man use this as an advantage na ba bia memfa na say foundations bi ya am to me am build ya ama abi wiwi and then you betumi akoyechi assign akofa no back na yatumi aye amana yi me ogidie say o man Ghana yina kan adwene ene ye ho bomu a ye betumi asi o man no ama atumi afa ne ntoma pa afra biem aha PENDREAM TV measure so bekoso subscribers or subscriber fine no one like video no e dia mind no subscriber me so subscribe to the channel no na uwia na obomodin say obe share video no ama foforo so ensa atumi akabi me pacho wadwenchire bi afato comment section na say na follow en ewo ye social media handles ni na so Facebook PENDREAM TV Ghana and Twitter, Instagram and TikTok ni na PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV yesi edamu yopo.
Maneva na say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV de osi edam yopo.